problem. And Brad is fine, but yes, you got the title correct.
Cool, man. What's going on? How you doing, man? How's your day been?
It's been good. It's been good. Got to sleep in. Little guys slept in, which is rare. So.
Nice. That's awesome. And so, yeah, I guess I could just start off with I don't know if you have any like social media or if you have like kind of like an online like like what you've got going on there. Because originally I think it was your wife reached out to me and said that you kind of been doing some public speaking
Hmm.
recently. And I was just interested because anytime usually that there's RCMP officers or any cops or military or anything getting into public speaking, it's usually around mental health or some sort of advocacy program like that. And so that always just piques my interest. I like
Right.
seeing that kind of thing. What kind of got you into that or made you inclined to feel like you wanted to do something like
My own
that?
experiences, really. Yeah, just I think I wished I had that going through and, my own experiences both in my personal life as well as in my work life. I took kind of what felt like the hardest way possible in terms of thinking my stuff was unique. No one else suffered like I did, and therefore I had to do it on my own. And then, had some really pivotal people in my life start talking about it and saying like, you don't have to white knuckle through all of this. And yeah, I got really lucky in some really incredible programs that I got involved in. And then since then have kind of ran with it. I've done podcasts, I've done public talks, and yeah, just anything I can for any members really, but especially new members coming in to just start off on the right foot instead of, wait till things go horribly wrong to then say, okay, maybe I should look at taking care of myself.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't mean to laugh there. It's just as you said that, I resonate a lot with that message of like, I felt like I was unique. That's like something that I try and rail against all the time is like we're all in this like kind of weird thing where it's like, man, I know like I get it. A lot of people have dealt with depression or like, suicidal ideations or anxiety. I get it, but they just wouldn't get why what I'm going through. Like my situation is so different because my dad did this, my grandpa did this, my uncle did this, my boss did this person did that. Whatever it was, we always have this like kind of intuitive like it's I don't know why all of us think this way, but it's like this
Mhm.
weird feeling of like but my situation's different. Maybe everyone
Yeah,
else had a solution, but like for me there's just no way. It's they don't understand. But it's like we all
absolutely.
feel that way.
Yeah, it's a combination of that and then the complete opposite of like, oh, well, other people have it worse than me, so I can't
Right.
complain or I can't say anything. And somehow both of those can run at the same time.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, dude, I 100% resonate with that. I remember that was one of the barriers for me even like seeing a doctor in the first place is like I actually even had a doctor one time tell me, and this is a weird experience that maybe will I don't want to deter anybody, but I had a doctor one time kind of going through these things and they're like, you really have nothing going on like you should be depressed about. And I was like, yeah, you're kind of right, I guess. And it's just like this weird, like you're in limbo because you're like, okay, that didn't really change how I feel though. Like,
Right. Yeah.
but dude, it is so how long have you been it's RCMP, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I went to Depot in April of 2009 and finished in October of 2009. So 16 and a half years now.
And how long like what made was there like a turning point, a pivotal moment where you kind of were like, yo, I got to start talking about this kind of stuff a little bit more? Or was it always something that kind of lingered and then as like social media and technology evolved, it just kind of became something? Or how did that happen for you?
I would say it was a large combination of things. And I think for me, the idea was like, okay, well, things can only bother me at work. And for me, it was like my losses at home were exceeding the losses at work, but all happening at the same time. So it was kind of like I need to do something because my life is crashing and burning right now. So this is my I live on Bowen Island. This is my sixth post in 16 years. So my
Oh
family and I
wow.
have transferred a lot. We started in Nova Scotia. We're there for just short of 5 years, and then did two isolated posts in the Northwest Territories. So
Oh
two-year
wow.
posts there. Went back to Nova Scotia for 3 years. Went to Fort Nelson, BC for four, and then we've been here since September. So we've jumped all over the place. Part of that is the love I've had for my career that I can travel the country and go. And I think part of that was mentally was, you know, if I went through bad experiences, then it was I know I just need to get away from the area. That
Mm,
like the kind of more better different is the way I lived my life for years. Like it's not me, it's this area. It's not me, it's what happened here, and I just need to get away from here. And ultimately it came down to what was socially acceptable as a mental health crisis, which was in December 2018. I was in an officer involved shooting in Nova Scotia. And then it was just kind of like publicly accepted of like, oh, okay, you must be messed up because you shot somebody. Where that really wasn't the thing underneath the thing. That's what got me going to see a psychologist. But I was so enwrapped in policing was my identity. I was a police officer, especially working in small posts. That's how I was identified. Oh, that's the new cop. That's the cop. That's the
right.
cop's wife. There was no, oh, I've never seen that guy before. It was everybody knew me all the time. And part of me went, yeah, I am the police officer. And then I was a husband and a dad, way lower down on that list than it should have been, especially for a career that, yeah, I absolutely love my job and, my upper management and supervisors can appreciate what I do, but at the end of the day, I can be replaced tomorrow without anything changing. So for me it was that pivotal change of realizing that my identity isn't my career and that I needed to get help.
Yeah. Wow, man. That is you said Northwest Territories, two times you were in Nova Scotia, and then what was the other one you said? Not just
So
Bowen
Fort
Island, but Fort
yeah, Fort Nelson, BC,
Fort
top
Nelson.
northeast corner of the province.
Holy man, not easy areas to be a cop. That's crazy. Do you have you heard of Resilience Through Fitness, Devin Kennedy and any of those
No, I
guys?
haven't.
Okay, dude. Well, so he's out on the East Coast, I believe, in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick. I'm pretty sure Nova Scotia, dude, because he so he was, I think he's still an RCMP officer. I don't want to speak. I might have to cut maybe part of this out, but he right now he's pretty outspoken about how difficult it is being a cop out there, what it's like. He's born and raised out there, and dude, he has told me some stories that just like make my skin crawl. Like it is just like a wild west. I could only imagine what it's like, dude. He's yeah, it's nuts, dude. You might be interested to. I'll try and link you guys together actually, because you probably
Yeah,
would
for
get
sure.
along really well. He has a big thing that he's got going on with like resilience through fitness, and it's his own kind of thing that he started up about mental health surrounding he like their slogan is protect those that protect us, right? So
Mm.
like that's it's kind of a cool thing that he's got going on, like therapy and fitness training for people that are first responders. And yeah, dude, he's told me some stories out there, dude, that it just as you say those kind of things about I don't know how you described it, but basically a situation where you had to shoot somebody. It's like that's like from what I've heard. And again, it's kind of different because I live in like in the city, like in Richmond and Vancouver here. And so like we have violence all the time, but it is just like a different kind of vibe, like you're explaining, because he's told me the same thing. It's like you go to the grocery store and you see the people, like you see they see you, they know that's the cop. there's like six of you there or whatever. Like it's like, like in your little
Hmm.
t city or whatever. So it's like everyone knows who you are when you're out, you're with your kids grabbing groceries, and these are the people that, most likely on Saturday night you might have to arrest. And
Yep.
it's like when you're arresting them, you have to take that into consideration. It's like depending on how this court case goes, I might see this guy next week at the store with my kid. So it's like I could only imagine, dude, what that's like because I'm a carpenter. It's not like when I go to a store, people are like, see, if anything, it's like positive interactions. Hey, that guy fixed my fence, whatever it is,
Right.
right? Like what's that like, dude? When you just have to like, I remember when I used to work in a gym, cops wouldn't even tell us that they were cops. Like we had a cop discount and they wouldn't even tell us that they were cops to get the discount because they just didn't want anyone knowing. They're like, I just want to come,
Right.
work out, get my shit done. I don't want to talk to any. Like, there's like a cop shop right around the corner. So there's like six of them there. And they just like don't want people to know. They're like, dude, please don't tell anyone. Like,
Right. Yeah, really good point. My first post was a large city center for Nova Scotia. I was just outside of Halifax and Cole Harbour. So I started in what's considered an East Coast policing, big city policing.
mhm,
Um, and it was nice because you could know some, store owners in communities, but otherwise I never ran into somebody, more than twice
mhm,
while I was there, other than at work for calls, but rarely ever out in public. And then my next two posts were 600 and 900 people, and I could tell you who someone was from like the way they walked or what they were wearing, and it was constantly there. And it's where I fell in love with community policing. The boss that I had was really big on getting involved in the school, getting involved in the community, and doing stuff so that when we did have to do our job as police officers, it wasn't we were just there to ruin people's lives. We didn't just go there to, mess things up. It was, I'd still see them at volleyball for rec sports on Tuesday or Thursday, or I'd still see them at like the community bingo. But the problem with that is, when you mix alcohol into it and then they threaten me or my family, and then I'm the next day at the grocery store or a week later, and I know what they said to me, but have to both protect myself but still act as if it's a normal day,
mhm.
really, really strains things and makes it really easy to fall down that loop of I'm unique, I need to isolate, I need to hide, I can't go out because things will get worse or I'll see somebody or I know what some people did or allegedly did and have to act as if I, have never met them before when I go out. So it's that hypervigilance, that window of tolerance becomes almost non-existent because it doesn't matter if my uniform's on or off. When you
Mhm.
work in a small community, they know where you live. They know, when you're gone on vacation. They know when you're coming back. And so for me, it's where I fell in love with community policing, that it wasn't about me as a police officer. It was about me as a person and how I could get involved. And especially up north, I fell in love with the culture.
Yeah, and is now are body cams a thing in Canada? Do RCMP officers have to, or do they wear body cams?
So they're rolling them out. Some areas it's already going all the way. In other areas it's slowly starting. But to answer your question, yes, they're
In
a thing.
BC though, like, do you wear one? If that's not like a question that's weird for you to answer, or...
No, it's no problem. I don't at my current post, they're still rolling it out. Where I was in Fort Nelson, we had them.
And um, just out of curiosity, again, you can kind of answer this however you like, but do you feel like that's kind of like a pro or a con? Because obviously, like, there's like beneficial. I would appreciate, obviously, like I could see how that's going to save certain people, maybe potentially from like, assault or whatever it is, some weird thing like that. But I've always kind of come from the frame of mind, and maybe this is just kind of my maybe due to my natural anecdotal experiences. I kind of like, I've always just like, even when I was a punk ass kid, getting detained or getting, I always had pretty positive interactions for the most part. And the reason I say that is because like I'm somebody that's like, all right, you got me. Like that's that. Like, okay, check under my seat. You're gonna find everything. I was like one of those guys. Like I'm like, that's it. What am I gonna do? And I like even just recently, I got one of like a speeding ticket. And I just told the guy, I was just honest with him. He's like, all right, man, I'm going to get you out of here. Gave me a little ticket, but he was nice and gave me some leeway. Like, I've always been of the mind of like, let's have a little bit of discrepancy. I like that window of discrepancy.
Mm.
I feel like, especially in small towns, like it's probably more beneficial because there are the people that it's like, at the end of the day, these people are going to drink and fucking drive every single weekend. So like we have to find a way to deal with this because like throw them in jail and then we get physical every weekend isn't the solution. Like it's just not. I don't know how. That's my personal perspective. I don't want to put any opinions on you, but what do you think of that?
In terms of cameras, I love them. I kind of walk around on a regular basis assuming I'm just being recorded and that it's like, if I say something a little bit harsh, I'll, own up to it. But at the same time, I think it's great for being accountable and being able to face out to the community to say this is exactly what we do and that it's not hidden. And I can't speak for the RCMP as a whole. My views are my own. But I like it for the problem members that don't like it being recorded or think they have to check what they say. Well, for me, if I'm concerned what I'm going to say because I'm being recorded, then I probably shouldn't be saying what I'm gonna say. And yeah, I find it's great if someone says, "Well, this happened before you had to go through this lengthy process of trying to explain your side, and where now we can go just hit play and." It speaks for itself. It's limited, just like any cell phone video, that it's only recording where it's pointing and, can limit what's seen, but it's way better than, you saying what happened and me saying what happened and then it just being like, well, how do we figure this out? Video is a fantastic way to go and I really enjoy it.
If for the places that have them, is it legal? Like, say, like for instance, and I'm not saying that, like I'm just saying hypothetically here. If there's a situation where a cop stops a guy, he's maybe breaking the law, but he's whatever, and it's like a little misdemeanor type of thing, and he's like, "Yo, I'm gonna turn my camera off and just tell you, like, I'm gonna take the booze out of your teenage backpack or whatever. We're gonna pour it out, and you're gonna go home." Maybe I'll give you a ride home. Is that a legal situ? Like, could a cop turn off the camera and just deal with a punk kid like that, or
I
would?
mean, could they? Yes. Should they? Absolutely not. Anything like you talked about even getting a ticket. I can choose to give somebody a warning or choose to give them a lower ticket than the ticket they're actually supposed to get, and that's just using officer discretion. That's
Right.
not I'm breaking the law or doing this. Like, and I can't really get into policing policies of
Yeah. No,
of
I'm
what we're
just
supposed to do and
curious,
what we're
dude.
not supposed to do, but whether I'm recorded or not, I can go, okay, we're gonna dump the alcohol out and you're not gonna get a ticket. Where there's some absolutes like impaired driving, it's not okay,
Right.
you know, it's not the old school way of okay, you're just gonna go home and park and not going. And I'm talking, like 30, 40 years ago where it wasn't a big thing. But yeah, there's definitely that line of there's some things that officers have discretion for, and there's others that they definitely don't. And for me, it has nothing to do with whether I'm being recorded or not. And I've done a ton of traffic stops where most of the drivers are recording me as I walk up. So I've got no problem with them doing it, and I actually prefer if I have it because then it's from my perspective and it's not clips of what they want to show.
Yeah, yeah. I've always been tempted to. I don't really have that many interactions with cops, to be honest, but I've always been. There's always like this. Again, I got one a few weeks back, and it was again. It was one of those situations. I was driving to go catch a ferry to go get married, And so like the cop's like, all right, dude, like he's gonna cut me a bit of slack. I'm like, dude, this is my ferry ticket. I'm so scared I'm gonna be late right now. He's like, give me your license and registration. I'll get you out of here. He's like, you're still getting a ticket, buddy, but like we're gonna get you out of here quick. And it was like there was like a part of me that was like, yo, should I record this or should, and then a part of me was like, yeah, that would maybe piss me off. I feel like as a cop, like it's like, yo, you don't need to do this, dude. But again, it's interesting to hear your perspective because I actually agree 100%. It's way easier to have the black and white recording of like, yeah, no, I never said that or this never happened. It's like, dude, it's cut and dry. We have the proof is in the pudding. Like it's right here.
Right.
That is really cool. Do you sorry to go on that weird tangent. I'm just a curious guy sometimes, but
All good.
it is something to think like that I think about sometimes because you see all this stuff and I don't know if it's fueling or helping or I've always been somebody that kind of I'm very supportive of law enforcement officers, so thank you for doing what you do. It's not a job I can do and it's necessary for the way that our society is structured. So it is like one of those things that I think is a thankless job a lot of the time, and it's one of those things because my algorithm feeds me a lot of those types of things that I think
Mhm.
about. Like, is this harmful or is it helpful? And I kind of flip flop in between because I see both sides of it. Like, it is. I like the idea because I was that knucklehead kid that, I'd never, I was getting in trouble. I was mixed up with the wrong groups. And so I liked that I had that discrepancy. I would be like, I'm glad this isn't being recorded right now. But then I also get the exact same because if I was a cop and I had people like making allegations about me, I would appreciate like having something to just be like, this is black and white, dude. There's no discussion. That's not how it happened.
Right.
Yeah, it is an interesting thing, but like, do you find that in those small towns, it's more polarized in terms of the support that you get from the public? Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like in smaller towns, it's either like there's no like neutral people with the cops. I feel like it's either like a love or a hate. Whereas, like feel like in the city, it's more neutral. Maybe. What do you
Now, I
think?
would I would say there's still kind of all three to it. I find in a smaller community, the ones that don't like the police are just louder, or you notice it
Hmm.
more because there's only so many people. And, it's like most things in society, the person that makes the most noise, gets the most attention.
Hmm.
And very rarely does somebody go, well, I want to publicly go out and say thank you to all the police officers on a regular basis. There's a lot of people that it's just like, well, that's what they signed up for. That's what's part of their job. And anywhere I've been, and I've taken a lot of heat from community members that didn't like, the amount of impaired drivers I caught or, the involvement in the community and like that. If somebody wants to be mad at the police, a lot of times it's the uniform and not the person,
Hmm.
and sometimes it's both. But yeah, I just find they're the ones that don't like us are just louder. And it's just about realizing that, there are people that care about us. There are people that, if I needed help would help me. And the downside is, we deal with 10% of the people 90% of the time, and it can have that mindset of like, well, this is what everyone's like, because we don't get invited to the nice birthday party. We get invited to, the domestic where they're freaking out at one another, and then they're mad because we're breaking it up and separating their family. That
Yeah.
it's that kind of reset for me to ground myself. And I like to say I like to hang out with normal people that aren't in the police world and don't have this just same fixed way of, I had to deal with this guy over and over again. And it's clearly the people, where it's really nice to just, join a sports team, hang out with people, and to know them from me as just being me and not me as the cop.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those jobs that it's like, and I'm kind of like this, I guess, as a carpenter, just because I'm a weird guy. but I feel like it's not really one of those typical professions. Like nobody really identifies as like a I'm a construction worker, but I feel like my aunt, she's visiting from Ontario right now. She's a retired nurse. But like nurses are like that, cops are like that, guys in the military are like that. I'm obviously throwing blanket statements out there where it's like it is an identity. And I don't know if it's just because like it's maybe a lineage thing. A lot of cops come from cop families, a lot of military comes from military families. And so maybe that's part of it. But it always is like I've thought of that experiment. I've got a bad shoulder. I've played out the thought experiment. What if I lost my arm? Could I still do the things I do? And how would that impact me mentally? Like if I wasn't a builder, how would I feel about myself? Because it is, like I said, I attach that to my identity a lot. I know it's not typical of construction workers, but I think about woodworking and carpentry like I can't walk into a building without seeing it. The same way that you probably
Right.
scan for exits and shit, and like a personal trainer looks at people's postures or whatever. I look and I'm instantly looking at like how they did the finish work and why things are built the way they are, and the structure and things like that. It is something that and for a couple of years I got obsessed about identity and like why we attach ourselves to these things, and what would happen if each I always think about it like part of my identity, I'm a brother. Well, what if I lost both my sisters? Obviously, God forbid it happens, but it's like, would I how would I feel about myself differently? Oh, I'm a son. What if I didn't have my parents anymore? Those
Hmm.
types of things. And do you think that in policing there's a different aspect of it? Do you think it hits different? How do you feel about that? Why do you think it is that, or do you think it is that cops deal with that in a unique way?
Good question. I think just the social aspect of being a police officer, like you said, that, publicly it's almost pushed on me that that's who I am.
Hmm.
Where, you mentioned nursing, military, firefighters, like
Oh yeah,
all those people
firefighters.
are they're identified in the public as their position.
Hmm.
But there's really only one of us being police that have it in a negative connotation
Right.
because of our job is to police other people. Where, my buddies are firefighters and yeah, they get introduced. Oh, that's John the firefighter. He's so great. And that's Brad the cop. And then the conversation immediately changes. Or
Yeah.
people think like, oh no, what did I just say?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like you can just have a normal conversation. So I think part of it is the culture, and then I think both from the public, and then part of it is policing as well, of that my instinct was I need to withdraw, I need to not talk to people, I need to do this because I'm this kind of face of policing.
Hmm.
So I think it's a bit of both. And I think for the biggest part, it's just having that as, you know, I need to um, emotional survival for law enforcement. The book talks about the I used to's. I used to play sports, I used to go out and hike, and then it was like the job took over that I really pushed for that. And what you were talking about with family and everything else is gratitude is kind of everything for me. Journaling or just looking at every day of like three things I'm grateful for really makes me present instead of thinking like this one bad call I went on or I didn't like this shift or something somebody said, that it's a lot easier to look at things from a grateful perspective than resentments and expectations and everything else.
It it is. I definitely agree with you. There's a lot of things that you said that really helped me out a ton. Like I'm big on journaling. I'm big on gratitude lists, and it is something that I even when you said I used to do this, I used to do, I that instantly hit with me because I think about the things that I would say those things about, and it's interesting. But do you mind if I ask, did you have any other police officers in your family?
Yeah, it was funny when you said that. My dad was a police officer for 32 years, and his dad was a World War II veteran. So,
Wow.
yeah, service was a continued thing.
And was there always kind of an expectation you'd become a cop, or was it like from a kid you wanted to do it, or did you end up just following it, or get like how'd that happen?
Yeah, I wanted nothing to do with it as a kid. I was born in Vernon and grew up in Ontario and New Brunswick. And as a kid, I hated the idea of moving. It was, we lived somewhere 4 to 6, 7 years and then move. And it was like my entire world just got robbed. And back then it was, well, you can write a letter to your friends and mail it,
Mm,
or you could have, 10 minutes on evenings and weekend minutes to try and call because it was too expensive. And so a lot of those relationships just ended.
mm,
And where it's funny, I hated it as a kid, and then at some point, post college and career went, well, maybe I could do this policing thing and just went for it and fell in love with it and really enjoyed it. And then all of my transfers, like um we have 4 kids, and I think about that every time we've done a transfer, but I involve, like, my wife and I involve them a lot more in it about, hey, what do you think about going here? They'll research it, they'll go on Google Maps, they'll look at it, they'll check out the area. And
how old are
then with
they, if you don't?
technology now, yeah, no problem. So 18, 15, 14, and 4,
Oh, cool,
two
man.
boys and 2 girls.
That's a big
And
spread too. That's
yeah,
fun, man.
and they're pretty amazing. Like, they've done really well. It's been hard for them for sure, with some posts that we've been at that they've left, and part of me remembers what that felt like. And with technology now, some of them, they'll still FaceTime their friends from other areas or call anytime. And so it's such a different dynamic. And then the culture and experiences they have, like, my kids have traveled more parts of this country than most grown adults have.
More
That,
than me, that's for
y
sure.
yes, they lost that, they didn't grow up with 2 or 3 friends from kindergarten to grade 12 kind of thing, but they've had all these experiences and different cultures in their life to show them that, you don't have to live in one town your
Hmm.
entire life. You can go out and live and experience and travel. And
Yeah. Well, that's really cool, man. The reason I asked about if you there was like this expectation, I've always kind of felt like, and this is maybe like a weird thing to hear, but I've always felt like, like when I see people that are first responders and military guys, there's a part of me that just thinks, because I think every boy as a young boy sees those jobs, and a part of them goes, that could be me. I could be a hero. I could be that guy. And I just know through my lived experiences, I'm just super squeamish around blood. I don't like seeing injuries. Like I don't there's just certain things I'm just not really built for. I'm scared of heights. Like there's all these things that I see, like guys that are first responders, cops, firemen, military, and I think like those guys are built different. Like I could never do that job. Like I could have like I get squeamish when I see people injure themselves on construction sites, like deep gashes or anything like that. I'm like I get faint, like it grosses me out. And like I've had to like put on a tourniquet for somebody or do those things. But like, dude, I'll get nauseous and like it's gross. It's I couldn't do that on a daily basis. I know in my heart, like I feel that it's like you're built different almost. Do you feel like that is the case? Do you think it's a, because I understand obviously the psyche desensitizes to things like that, but do you get the inkling of like maybe I was built to do this? Do you feel that way? And I've asked this question of a lot of people, but I'm curious to see what your answer is because it's something I've always
yeah,
thought of. Like those guys must be built different.
right. I like your look. I would say in a negative way, yes, that it's the built different idea, but like, I have a childhood memory of my dad coming to school as the, like, take your parent to work like so he could show his job,
Hmm.
and he showed up in a full red serge, like
Yeah, yeah.
our special uniform, and
With the
I remember
pants.
thinking that was, yeah, exactly. And I remember thinking that was the coolest thing ever. That
Hmm.
my dad was up at the front of the room and they thought he was cool, so they thought I was cool because I had the coolest dad ever that was a police officer. But then as a kid, I had all this like, my dad does this stuff at policing in as a police officer, but then, he's gone for holidays, he can't come to my sports stuff. He comes home and he's, still wearing the job. And so there's a lot of, dysfunction in the family that I became very chameleon like with my parents, with my brother, with moving. It was like, okay, well, some kids didn't like the way I was here, so I'm going to change everything about myself going into this spot. And then we'd move again, and it was like, okay. And instead of, wanting what I wanted or what made me happy, it was I looked for responses and love and acceptance from other people.
Mm.
And I think that is what created me as a very, very good police officer is I could change, I can put on that persona of everything's fine when I'm terrified. Like you talk about like, blood and guts. I'm it all depends. Some stuff I'm like, oh, that's really neat. Other stuff I'm like, I do not want to be here. I'm
Mm.
afraid of heights. A lot of times stuff at night, I get this weird like,
Yeah.
it's when all the bad things happen is at night, and instead it's like no, I got to shut that down. And I would say I got really good at dissociation as a police officer. Was it was like, well, just ignore it, and if you if you say these things out loud, then people are going to judge you for it. And so I would say it was a lot of like, yes, there's aspects that I absolutely love helping people. I go into things when other people choose to run away, but it's also because I have forced myself to block the way that I feel about certain things in order to do that throughout my life, starting in childhood, and then it just became, a social norm of, oh, he's really mature for his age, so that must be great. And then it's encouraged to continue these behaviors. So
Yeah, just I always make that joke. I'm just trying to stay out the way. That's how I felt like a lot of times in life. Like it's like just whatever creates the least amount of friction for these people. I just want to coast through. I get that.
absolutely.
And
Yeah, looking at people's acceptance also got me really good at reading people,
mhm.
you know, both as an investigator to look into things, but also like, okay, well, this person doesn't like that I'm doing this, so I need to change it.
Mhm. Right, right, right. It is something that you can kind of see that as well, like bleeding into from your professional life into personal life. I definitely could see something like that bleeding through. It is something that's interesting. I can't remember you said something there that really clicked with me for a second, and there is something to it though. The sorry, I'm just trying to jog my own memory here.
Okay.
I think I lost it, but there's. Do you struggle with that idea of turning it off? Oh, you know what it was? You know what it was? It was when you said in the dark. I get that. This is just a random thought. I live in like kind of a suburb of Richmond. I don't know if you know the area at all or know where I'm.
Not well.
Okay. I'm in like it's kind of like so Richmond's like where all the airport is, and we're just
Hmm.
north of the ferries in Tawasin there. But I'm kind of like in a suburb of Richmond. The reason I say that is because I go for runs a lot of the time at like either early in the mornings or in the dark, right? At night. And I lived in like downtown Richmond for a couple years. And there was one time where, that's when you're like running past people that they're still up from the night before when you're getting up for your work. And so you're running past people that are maybe ODing on the streets. It was a very different experience than my neighborhood. But I lived in the downtown area. And I remember one time I went for a run. It was 4 o'clock in the morning in like November, and it wasn't like gross out, but I'm out there wearing a toque, and a cop drives by me, and I keep running, and the cop comes back. You can see he's doubled back, and then he comes by a third time, and he's like, "Pull your toque up, pull your hair, like show me your face." And I'm like, "What the fuck?" Like I'm like, "What's going on?" And he's like, "Pull up your toque, dude." I'm like he's like getting out of his vehicle at this point. And I like pull my toque up, and he's like, "All right, cool, man. I was just looking for someone with face tattoos. You're good. What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm just going for a run. Like I work in construction. I got to be on a job site at 7." And he's like, "Oh, okay, cool, man. Have a good day." And I was just thinking in my head, like, "Yo, it's so different being out in like the downtown area. Because when I'm running around here, like, not that I'm like a big guy, I'm like 6 feet, no, 5'11", 200 pounds, but like, most people in the neighborhood would be concerned about me with a hood on running towards them at night, you know? But I get the same uneasy feeling. Like when you got to go through an alley and you just got to run through it, you're like, even though 90% of this neighborhood would see me as a threat, my haunches are still up, you know? Like I'm
Right,
still like there's an uneasy feeling. I don't know what it is. Even when you're the guy that you, especially being a cop, like you're the guy that's armed, like most people would be scared to see you.
right,
It is such a weird thing. I don't know if it's just the dark and the unpredictability. Maybe some like ancient genetic like DNA is activated in the dark in an alley, but it's like it is a weird thing. I've tried to explain this to my wife where I'm like, dude, like it makes me uncomfortable. I can only imagine how you feel.
right.
It is, and it's does that come into play? Do you have to remind yourself that that's how the people feel when you're the cop? You're like, wait, I'm the one they're uncomfortable about.
Definitely, like, and everyone's a little different. I have a lot of friends in the US, and like their concept of policing and the norm and just with firearms and everything else, that even something as simple as a traffic stop, I'll pull over an American and they'll generally have like their hand on the steering wheel, and they'll ask like their level of fear on a traffic stop, or at least like just kind of respect of the situation, that they'll say, "Can I reach in the glove box?" Or they'll tell me where their stuff is, and they'll
Hmm.
say out loud what they're about to do. And then I'll stop, any random Canadian, and they just go reaching for things really
Hmm.
quickly. Like they
Hmm.
dart for stuff. And it's like, I don't know who you are. I've never met you before. I don't know if you're grabbing your driver's license or a gun. And I have half of a second to react. That there's that kind of thought process, and I find that kind of gets heightened for me at night, that it's like this could happen, and you play the like
Hmm.
worst case scenarios in your head. um and then same thing on a regular Joe person, of some of them think, oh, there's nothing wrong at all, and then others think like, oh no, this police officer has a gun, and this could end horribly badly for me. But a lot of times it's the people that are like, oh, well, I know I'm not doing anything wrong, and that's a police officer, so I'll just do anything I want. And then they're the ones that do these like quick flinch, quickly reach in
Sporadic.
a pocket, quickly like reach in the center console, and they're like, it's not a big deal. I'm just getting this. And it's like, well, yeah, that's great because you know that, but I don't.
Hmm. Yeah, I have no idea what you're pulling out of your jacket pocket, buddy. Like,
Right.
I can't remember what it was. I think it's because I got tattoos at a young age when I was like 18. But I remember when I worked at a bar and someone had literally explained it to me. I'm pretty sure it was a cop. He's like, dude, you want to get on any cop's good side? Anytime you get pulled over, roll down all your windows, turn on all the lights, and make your hands visible. Like you will get out of that situation most of the time. How true is that? Not obviously, but like how comfortable is that? That's like a
There's a
good,
comfort thing to it,
yeah,
absolutely. Instead of all tinted out windows
yeah,
and, your hands are hidden, absolutely.
yeah. It is. It's something that I feel like, especially like you said, as Canadians, we don't think about. Again, I've got a twisted algorithm, so I see that kind of stuff, and I'm pretty aware of it. Of like, yeah, it is something that we don't really think about as Canadians, but like there's people that are just running around with, and it's fully legal, but like they could easily just whip out a gun, and that's
Mm,
that. It's instantly like, oh, this is a very different situation than just like a speeding ticket at this point. Like this is life or death at this point.
right.
It's crazy to think. And again, there's obviously dangers to my career. People can fall off roofs. They can have things dropped on them. I've seen gross things happen to people and like hospitalizations, but it is something that when it's different between, it's almost like those altercations are like a person versus environment. Whereas like in policing, it's person versus person. Like it's like, oh, this is someone that's actively trying to put me in danger. And then
Right.
it becomes like, there's like a human instinct, especially I feel like as men, we're more subjected to or maybe susceptible is a better word, to then like it becomes like an anger thing of like, oh, you're now threatening me, which is by proxy, like kind of threatening my kids because that's their future. And then it becomes like an aggression thing of like that I could easily see myself if I were a cop to get upset about things like that. Like that would piss me off and it would become personal. Like again, I don't think I'm built to do it. I could openly say I don't think that's a good quality for a cop, but I can empathize and see myself doing that. You know, like how hard is it? Is it difficult for a lot of cops? Do you feel that kind of like hard to separate it between like I know I shouldn't take this personal, but I do.
Yes and no. And it used to, like when I was at my worst, absolutely. Where now like a big base for me is meditation. That it's, I don't have the last week worth of stuff on my plate. That's the one, that's the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, that it makes me just really present and aware of, there's some people that are just venting because they need to vent and it has nothing to do with you. Where if I didn't have that headspace, then I would feel, attacked. And the biggest thing for me is like anything regarding my character or like my job of, not doing it correctly, or, you did this and shouldn't have, those things would kind of set me off the most of, anything against me as a person, or, well, you said you would do this and you didn't. I would immediately kind of either attack or defend because that was somebody going after my character.
That sounds like arguments that happen in my home. That's literally it, dude. I feel the exact same way. Those are the things that really get me triggered, but it is something that yeah, with policing it's like the stakes are so much higher. You know, like it's
Mm,
something it's tough, dude, and that's what makes the job so tough, I guess, right? It is it's almost like a job that like average people I feel like can't do, you know? Like and it sounds weird, but it's there's a like it sounds weird, but then it also sounds obvious. You know what I mean? Like it's like there's a pretty high bar and it is something that every time I have a conversation with somebody like you, it definitely puts my life into better perspective a lot of the time because it's like especially being a cop again I know I'm not trying to blow smoke but it is like I said it's a thankless job a lot of the time like you said right like the firemen
right,
are always looked at as heroes and then like there's like a small subsect of people that like view cops that way but on average like best case scenario it's neutral right
right.
like that's like the best case but it's so it's one of those things like I've flip-flopped I've been a knucklehead teenager you know, and when I hear people like flippantly say negative things about cops, it's like it genuinely irks me at this point. So it is something that I feel like we should advocate for, but it's again, the other side of it is you know, we have to take care of them. Like that's where this idea of like advocating for the safety, the mental health of cops is something that I definitely like to explore and hear about more about because it's I think it paves the way for a lot of other guys. Like I think that as a construction worker, when I hear guys in the military, when I hear cops, when I hear, you know, these people that like I said, I view them as like men that are built differently. Like it is the most alpha of society, if you want to put it into like those types of terms. But if they can come out and say, "Yo, I need some help," then it paves the way for people like blue collar guys like me. It's like, yo, if these guys can do it, I can do it. I can reach
Mhm.
out. I can be more open about it. And do you feel like, because I think that a lot of people, and you maybe touched on this earlier, but do you feel like a part of you was waiting for something bad enough to justify reaching out for help was coming around the corner? Does that make sense?
I get what you mean, but for me it was I made my job my identity, that if I ask for help now, then who am I? Like
Maybe I'm not
if
meant to be. Is that what you? Sorry, I don't
between
mean.
that and no problem at all. It's more like between that and, if I say my job is hurting me, but or, I'm not sure if I want to do this forever,
Mm,
but I'm basing my entire life on, but I am a cop. Oh, right. And I'm a father and I'm a husband. That it's like, if I take that main tier, the very top tier of who I am as a person away, then what am I? And then you've got members that have really set the standard and they take care of themselves first. Um, and, take time off. They go seek help. Then, as a police force, especially, even as much as 2, 3 years ago, I find it's getting a lot better now, but we shame them. I feel like, oh, my buddy just went off on sick leave for a month. Oh, something must be wrong with him, or maybe he can't handle the job, and I need to, belittle that person to make myself feel better, even though I'm in the exact same situation he is. He was just courageous enough to actually ask for help and to make
mm,
him a priority, instead of I'll just keep crashing and burning my life down until it's too late. And I find the biggest thing for me was kind of suicidality, um, and just suicide ideation. It was like I wasn't that guy that would think, oh, I'm going to hold a gun to my head, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to have a plan. But I thought I'm a monster to my kids, and my family would be better off without me if I wasn't here.
mm,
And so then the thought process was, well, if I die at work, you know, I'd be a hero and my family would win, because then I'm not in the picture anymore. And it was that kind of stuff that would scare me even more, when it was members I knew would take time off or would go on leave or would retire early, because then it was like, wait, like I admired that person because of what they were and what they could do. And if they're suffering, what's going to happen to me? And it was just kind of that vicious loop of going back and forth between that. And instead, my best thinking was, I'll double down and I'll work more and I'll, isolate at home and everything else. And it was like I was offering my family less, but expecting more. So I think it's really that line of having that support, of talking openly, saying, oh, I have a psychologist appointment today, of realizing, like, yeah, it's really easy to say, oh, this is the RCMP's fault. They did it to me. No, my trauma started, when I was 6 or 7, and started having these fixed ways of being that, just without any, looking, treatment, reflection, grounding basis at all, has just developed over and over again until I'm an adult and I don't have the proper ways to stop and catch myself before I get angry, before I yell, before I whatever. That it's about having that base. And I've worked in some really, really great offices that, and currently, that we can talk about, mental health. We can talk about, I had a really shitty day today. I'm gonna go for a run. I'm gonna go for a hike in the woods. I'll go jump in the ocean to just kind of ground and reset, instead of, let's go have some beers, or, let's just not talk about it, because if we talk about it, then we might feel weak. It's just about changing that dynamic, that I'm totally fine talking about my mental health and my struggles. It's not something I'm ashamed of. It's something that I wished I'd started at sooner. But I'm also glad I went as far as I did, as quickly as I did. I started in the RCMP at 21, and 16 and a half years in, I've seen a lot of members that are, 30-year members, and, four failed marriages later are trying to figure themselves out. And for me, with mental health, with seeing a psychologist and asking for help, and then a lot of members I talk to, the PTSD diagnosis is this like, finally there's a name for the thing. Finally, I have an answer. For me, it was like, what did I do? I went looking for this. I could have ignored it. I could have stuffed it down for, another 10, 20 years. And so it was like, I, to me, my best thinking was I did this to myself. I could have just ignored it and been completely fine. And it's like, maybe, but I also wouldn't be married. I wouldn't have relationships with my kids, and I wouldn't be in the state I am. That if that comes with a PTSD diagnosis and some extra work to make sure that I'm grounded, centered, and okay to be present with my family, then I'm absolutely thrilled that I took the steps that I did to be where I am today.
Yeah. It's interesting you said earlier you mentioned a couple different things I've just been thinking about as you were talking. Like you said the first thing you said was this didn't happen because of the RCMP. This isn't like the RCMP did a thing and now this is happening to me. Like you said, I think, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you said that this is like some trauma that started maybe early on in my life, maybe 5 or 7 years old. And it kind of got me thinking, a lot of the times we look at these jobs, I've heard like horror stories from, paramedics, first responders, all these different types of things that, it's objectively like you couldn't really, there's no argument. Those are traumatizing events. And, but what you said got me thinking. It's almost like just like being a human is kind of like just traumatizing, sort of to a degree, just growing up, having experiences, whatever issues you have going on in your life. But it's almost like these jobs, like being a first responder, being in the military, being whatever, like exposes you to more catalysts for those things to be then activated. Does that kind of track? Do you get what I'm saying?
It does. It's kind of like the theory of what came first, the chicken or the egg.
Right.
Did I hit on so much trauma through my job, or did I have so much trauma that I went to my job? And
Right.
I'm a
Sorry, I was just gonna say I didn't want to interrupt you there, but I was just gonna say it's almost like you've been given a suit of everyone just gets like a suit of armor in life, right? And then you might have a couple chinks in the armor, you might have some weaknesses, you might have some issues. But then I become a carpenter. So that armor never really has to, I go through my life, I just got married, maybe I'll have some kids, whatever. There might be like weaknesses exposed further down the line. But what I'm saying is, like, as a cop or as a first responder or military, that armor gets tested pretty early and often. That you get, does that make
hmm
sense? And it's like,
absolutely.
and it's almost like it gets like exposed and weathered a lot quicker and easier. And it's not to say like, oh, the RCMP did this to me or being in the military did this to me. It's like, no, this is just like I'm a human being and this just exposed certain things quicker for me. Does that make sense, or do you agree with that, or what do you? That's just something that just kind of sprouted in my brain as you were talking.
Yeah, I see the point. I would say that you and I could do the exact same thing. Either if you and I were both carpenters or you and I were both police officers, and then an incident happens that, let's go with carpentry. Someone gets hurt on the job. You take it like, hey, that happens, that really sucks, but it's okay. But something in my mind triggers to say a memory as a child or whatever, then automatically that is linked completely different. And even though you and I saw the same experience, I lived it a lot differently. And I find that's a big thing with military and policing. And some of the work I've done is connected with what's called ACEs, adverse childhood effects. And it's about dysfunction, abuse, and neglect in the home between essentially childbirth and 18 years old. That kind of set the foundation for how I react mentally to situations. And when trauma happens at a young age, parts of, for me, froze in that time.
Mhm.
So now I'm, 38, but if something, if my mind connects something that happened right now to something that happened when I was 10, then I have a 10-year-old trying to figure out, a 38-year-old's problem, and it doesn't work well. And the biggest thing for me in the different courses I've been on and stuff that I learned, that it's like, I became the thing I feared most. And in a huge way is true. Like I absolutely adored my dad. He was my hero, but I was also I was terrified of him. He talks about when he worked that it was an ask, tell, make thing in policing. And he also like ruled the home that way, that it was we were kind of treated the same way. And that was, probably a foundation that he got from his dad, who was a World War II veteran. And it was, yeah, well, you're lucky you didn't get it the way I did. And my best thinking as a parent was, well, my dad hit me, so I'm not going to lay a hand on my kids. But it didn't mean I wouldn't yell at them or make them feel less than. And now it's trying to, catch back now that I'm at where I'm at, to not treat them that way and to not, keep passing down that generational trauma of what comes next and what comes next and what comes next. That for me, it was, well, they don't have it as bad as me because I'm doing this, and instead I'm creating something else. And I think largely that's what drove me to the thought of, my intention was I want to help other people. But it was also part of me was stuck as a child of being afraid of police. So I became the police in order to try and change that.
Yeah, that is interesting. I definitely I can feel exactly what you're saying with that whole idea because it's something even just like before you even have kids. Just I'm sure you could relate to this. Like just getting married, you kind of have like that kind of it's really easy to just be like, well, I'm never physical with her. There's no way that I could like be looked at as like an aggressive guy. You know what I mean? And I get what you're saying as well with the kids. Like it's like a lot. I feel like a lot of dads could just phone it in and just be like, "Yeah, but I never hit my kid." It's like, yeah, okay, but that's great. That's okay. Yes, that's good, but that's not the only way you could hurt them, right? Like
Right.
it's hearing you say that that really clicks with something in my head because it is something where you really do think about it, how we have that mentality of like, well, it's not as bad as I had it. It's like, well, you kind of want to give them maybe a better foundation than not as bad, but
Right.
that's just personal. But I get exactly what you're saying. It's yeah, does that make you choose the path, or is that the path that, it is kind of a chicken and an egg thing. But there is something as well that just yeah, it is such a tough thing. What was the response like when you started being a bit more outspoken about, mental health, and was it more about because you said you really like you feel called towards talking to like new recruits. Do you feel the most drawn towards support? Like obviously there's no like A or B or whatever, but I'm just curious, is it more towards like preparing people coming into the police force of like these are the things you're going to have to overcome, just a heads up. This is more transparency for people coming in, or do you feel more called or drawn towards like we need to support the people that are already there or perhaps making their way out? Is it both? What kind of like resonates best with you or most with you?
I would say both. I would say the new members would are the easiest because it's, if we started it in training or as they got out of training, that it's like, okay, you've got your trainer. and here's a list of psychologists you can go see. Get a baseline for how you are. I would love to see that. And then it starts it off with, routine maintenance instead of, oh no, everything's fallen apart. I'm probably drawn more to, the senior members. Like I'm in that odd service where at 16 and a half years service, some people think of me as this like ancient relic in policing. And then there's other members that have, 20, 25, 30 years. And I'm, a new pup to them. Like I'm in that realm that I think when I speak, it has value. And that depending on where they're coming from, can look both ways. But I think just speaking from the heart and how I feel, and I have enough experiences both at home and at work that kind of shines through. Like I'm not just reading a sheet of paper or, I'm not doing the like mental health stickers of put a sad face on your desk if you're not doing well kind of thing. Like I'm a big proponent of no, like I've been through some stuff. I don't go in a lot of detail with it because I don't want to cause, secondary and tertiary trauma to people, policing especially, and even the public. Oh, tell me a story. Tell me the worst call you've ever been to. And it's the worst thing we can possibly do because I'm reliving it and I'm telling you these horrible, horrible details that you don't need to hear. But the curiosity in the mind wants to know more. So I'm probably drawn to the more senior ones because, I've had conversations with people that if they didn't chat with me, their life either would have ended or would have changed in a drastic way that I'm super blessed to be a part of, that I was able to have those conversations and change that way of thinking.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the biggest breakthroughs are the members that have been through some stuff and suffering, and like I said at the beginning, are white knuckling it through, thinking this is the only option for them because they don't know what they don't know. They don't know that there's another option. They don't know that, I can still be a police officer, still be diagnosed with PTSD, and still have a happy and healthy life.
Hmm.
Because if I haven't gotten through that stage or if I haven't talked to somebody that has, I think of the worst case scenarios. I think the members that are completing suicide. I think the members that are quitting their job. And I go, no, I'm going to ignore that because I don't want to deal with it. That, if me being a little bit vulnerable and having the courage to say my exact story, this is what happened to me, but it's not who I am. It's just something that happened.
Yeah. I get what you mean about the reluctance to want to share those details, man, because it is something that like I said, I've got a weird, pretty crazy algorithm. There's a lot of things in the last few years that I've seen that I don't think that we're supposed to see. And I really, especially with wars going on overseas and stuff, and now you can just watch drone footage. It's
Mm,
crazy, dude. It is actually crazy. But I do think I have two specific stories in my head that I think about when it comes to one is policing. It's one of the stories that, like I said, Devin Kennedy told me about, and I'll never forget the story he told me, and it changes the way I view like kind of traffic stops and police interactions.
mm,
And I heard a paramedic tell a story on a podcast a few years back about having to respond to like a situation, and it changed the way she viewed her job, and then just me hearing that and her having that story told. I'm like, yo, these people, that was one of the times where I was like, these people are built different. Like, I don't know how I would wake up the next morning and function properly, let alone go back to work. But like, this person's still doing it, And it's
right,
like, I think of those two specific stories and I go, that completely shifted the way that I view first responders in different ways. And so I definitely think that there is aid to that. Like it made me less ignorant to what people actually go through, and
right,
it made me more empathetic a lot, especially to paramedics. No shade on paramedics. I didn't think of them in that light before. I just didn't really think of them as much.
right.
That's to be honest, and Yeah, it is crazy when you hear those types of stories. The other thing I was wondering as well is, maybe I'm wrong about this, and I probably am, but I feel like a lot of the changes that maybe are necessary in bureaucratic situations like policing, some where it's so intertwined with, the government and all this bureaucracy of this person has to vote for this and they have to do this and this guy's got to sign this document and all these things have to happen. I think almost like the papers have to go across so many desks of people that, and again, this is where I could be wrong, but like, there's, you know this better than I do, right? Like there's people that work in policing that have that they're what do they call it? Like they haven't been like on the street. I don't know how to explain this, but they're like commissioned officers. Is that what it's called?
Mhm.
When they're just like hired to be an accountant for the police or an analyst for something like that. And so I think what I'm trying to say maybe is a lot of these things that are going to benefit officers that are on the streets have to pass through the desks of people that perhaps aren't in the same situations and don't have those lived experiences. Do you think that that causes friction in terms of what could help officers? The same way that I had this kind of misrepresentation in my brain about what paramedics go through or other first responders, these people could work for the police and not have that experience. Do you think that that causes friction? Or do you think that maybe they're more empathetic to it? Because some jaded cops might be like, oh, they don't need the help. I went through that. And how do you feel
Right.
about that?
I would lean one way a lot more than the other, but I can see how one is pushed. Like there's the really easy way to be like, well, they've been off the road for so many years, they don't know what we go through, there's that kind of thought process, and I don't agree with that. I've had some incredible upper management, like top level bosses, that openly speak out about their own mental health. That I think it's absolutely incredible and needs to happen more. But I also find that they almost take on more. No, they're not on the road, but they're responsible for, a few hundred members or 1,000 members instead, and they have to, sit with that. Or if one of their members completes suicide, the thought process of could I have done something else? Is that on me? They have to, you know, sit at a desk and play through that, where if I go to work, I'm on the road, I'm actively doing something, so I have a part in what happens instead of trying to line things up from a bigger perspective. From the RCMP, we are such a huge thing. Like we're nationwide. It's not like, well, okay, in this one town we're gonna do this. It's not just a quick snap your fingers and change
Mm-hmm.
things. It needs to be balanced. It needs to be, a member in Ontario, a member in Newfoundland, and a member here in BC need to have the same opportunities. I completely agree with that. I think we just need to start pushing the envelope a little bit on what's available. There's an organization called Wounded Warriors Canada. It was absolutely phenomenal for starting to make me realize, okay, I need help. It's okay to talk to, these people and not think, well, they're going to take my job away or they're going to put me on, stress leave if I do. And there's the education piece of, the whole like lizard brain. The only reason I'm alive is because all of my ancestors knew when to fight, run away, or freeze. And that part of my brain, I don't necessarily have control of when that kicks in. And it's just kind of understanding why. My kids laughing was one of the biggest triggers I had before I started taking care of myself, because that high pitched laughter reminded me of really bad calls for some reason, whether it was the pitch,
Screams.
what it was, but it was like I got really angry and needed to like shut it down, that my family started walking on eggshells instead. And these courses, they were fantastic, absolutely fantastic in letting me know why my brain worked the way that it did. But at the end of the day, it was just information. It was like I used to joke, okay, now I know I'm fucked up. I just don't know what to do about it. And
Yeah.
I think that's the difference. It's the having the experience, it's having a course that you can go to, and then having a continued plan after that, having a daily practice, having, people that you can reach out to, openly talking about what's going on in a safe way without it without being shamed for it, without being, guilted or it weaponized against you. Like I don't give people bats that they can hit me with, which is why I'm really careful with what I share. But it's like, I can say I had suicide ideation because I hoped I would die at work so that I wouldn't be around my family. But there's some people that can go, oh, well, you're not safe to be on the road then because you said this. It's like, well, that's not how I feel now. But this is also why I was afraid when I did feel that way of saying it, because somebody would try and take me
Mhm.
off the road. So that's the whole, like, there needs to be a safe place that we can do it. There needs to be continued education and continued work on being able to take care of yourself. And they're working on it. There's a ton of people in my life, both previous detachments and current ones, that really push for that mental health. And it's for me, it's just about starting small. It's about doing this stuff. I can't get out to everybody that I want, but if I do, a couple podcasts a year and one person listens to it and they say, wow, that really changed my life, then it made it everything that I went through worth it.
Mhm.
So
Oh,
I would say it's
100%.
really about the small step stuff. And, no, we can't go, like, our headquarters is Ottawa. I can't just go to Ottawa and say, hey, you have to do this and expect them to listen to me and expect them to be able to go and change everything at the snap of a finger. But I can go to my detachment and say, hey, I really care about, whether you live or not. I really care about you being able to show up as a dad more than you being able to show up at work. And both can happen at the same time.
Yeah. So in your heart of hearts, you wish that you had these resources and these things earlier on. Do you think that you would have used them if you had had them?
No. Yeah,
Okay.
great question. It needs to be delivered in the right way. If I say, hey, there's this course and you have to go on it, or, hey, you have to come and watch this PowerPoint presentation and expect it to change your life, I'm probably not doing it.
Hmm.
If I say, hey, you have to raise your hand or ask publicly for help, most people probably aren't going to do it because then they'd have to pretend that they weren't pretending anymore.
Right. And it's easy. I definitely, the second you said that, where you're like, I can't just openly say this because if I'm saying, I want to be taken out at work or whatever, I don't know what words you're allowed to use for it on YouTube or whatever, but it's like, we all know the terms, and it is very easy to logically be like, oh, then we don't want that guy being a cop because like then he's going to put himself in those situations and that's going to endanger other people. But it's hard to make the disconnect of like, oh, I can have a thought and then not act on it too. And I
Hmm.
100% resonate with that because I struggle with those types of thoughts as well. And I know exactly what you mean of like knowing in your heart, I'm not going to do this, but I do kind of, part of me wishes it happened and all these things. It's a weird, fucked up place to be, man. And it's being a human's hard, but it's even harder when you have that idea of like, oh, if I talk about this, I could lose my entire career. And that means my kids don't go to school in this area or I have to move to this area. And then all of a sudden it's like, it seems like life's a lot easier if I just kind of stop talking about this.
Right.
It seems like everyone else will be better off if I just grin and bear it, bottle it up, and swallow these emotions. Like that's kind of like it's easy to see it that way. And I guess that maybe I was going to ask you, this is kind of the same, along the same vein, but to make it more mandatory, to streamline it a little bit more of like, hey, we're just going to get you like as you become an officer, just once a month, you're going to sit down with a therapist and just like have a good chat. And then they'll be able to chat with you because I feel like even I'm sure there's paperwork that you do, but like even when I got like my non-restricted, like my PAL, you fill out the paperwork, you go and do the test, and basically there's like four questions there, and it's like, have you ever been depressed? Have you ever done this? Have you ever? You just write no, and then you get your pal. And like
Yeah.
obviously, like I'm assuming maybe it's different, but like maybe it's similar for cops. Like how stringent is that kind of? Obviously, they maybe do make you talk to a doctor once or twice, but it got me thinking recently because I'm a big nerd about John Kiriakou. I don't know if you know who that guy is. The
No.
ex CIA agent. He's just a big. Anyways, if you're interested, he's a whistleblower on some of the stuff that they did with torture and things. But anyways, he says that when they screen for the CIA, they actually look for people that have a tendency to psychopathy. And so part of me, again, I'm a crazy conspiracy theorist. Maybe like being a cop, like they might screen for something like that, like to look for, maybe it's beneficial in some situations to have somebody that doesn't freeze up when they see certain things, or maybe it's beneficial. I don't know. I'm an idiot carpenter. But what is it similar to be like your pal when you become a cop? Do they have like the four questions on the bottom of the sheet? Have you ever thought of suicide and you just write no and then you're good? Is that what it's kind of like? Or
So there's a like my process to applying to the RCMP took almost a full year. Like there's a super in-depth thing to it. There's a lot of stuff that touches on like the psychology part of it, but that's so hard to capture in a questionnaire
right?
because one, I'd have to tell the truth, and two, it'd have to be found that like the way I look at it is the PTSD questionnaires. When I first started seeing a psychologist, it was like, are you happy? And it's like, well,
Today,
the expected answer is yes, but I'm not really, you know, but if I put on a scale of 1 to 5 how happy I am and I write 2 or 3, then they're gonna ask questions. So I'll write a 4, and it's
hmm
like, well, some days I might be, so I don't think I'm lying, but I'm not telling the truth about how I feel. Like there's that stuff, which is why when you mention like mandatory stuff, the word mandatory always kind of makes me go, like yes, to get them like in that presence of it, but I saw a psychologist for a year and lied my face off. I talked about, my week, but wouldn't talk about my shooting, like wouldn't talk about, all the horrible stuff I saw, to the point that my psychologist said either either I don't need to see you as often because, similar to what you said earlier, it was like either things are going pretty good for you or you're really good at dissociating. And it was like, oh no, she sees it. And I was like, oh well, I don't know. Maybe every 2 weeks is fine because it was like to me it was like I got caught. It was like if I say yeah, I'm fine and then I don't come to these meetings, then things are going to get worse. But I can't tell her everything because then, who am I? And it's
I'm
kind of the
not
devil you
leaving.
know compared to the
Yeah.
devil you don't. That it's like, I know how I am right now, but I don't know what it's going to take for me to be the person that, you know, who I am right now. If you told me 5 years ago I could have this, there's no way I'd believe you because I was so fixed on where I was and that, there's no way my life can get better. Parts of me have it that, I deserve this. I was meant to lose people. It's my fault. And it's just kind of cracking through that. I think largely is just from these kind of shared experiences and looking for things, and you have to want the help. I can't, force somebody I work with to go see a psychologist and then everything's better. Because, I mean, I'm the prime example of it. I lied to my psychologist, constantly just to get by because I didn't want to, open too much. That anything mandatory, is automatically going to change. Anything in the form of, a paper and a question that I can answer, my default setting is be a chameleon and give the answer that people want to hear. Not anyone actually wants to hear what I have to say. So those kind of questions and stuff like that can be so biased or jaded, that it's not gonna come true. That, people that have lived experiences, that I'm not just reading from a sheet of paper saying, yeah, just, take a couple deep breaths and you'll be fine.
Mhm.
That it really comes down to the delivery.
So where do you think, like, if you, in a perfect world, how what do you think changes, like if they said you could make whatever changes you'd like tomorrow, what do you think you'd start implementing, or like in terms of like as for new recruits? Because I get exactly what you mean. I've filled out the similar paperwork at the doctor's offices where they say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel? How what's your appetite like? You're like, well, some days I indulge and I eat 16,000 calories because I'm hurting that bad, and I indulge in food because that's my comfort for me. And then there's 4 days where I don't eat because I have so much anxiety. And so you're just like wondering, like, how should I answer this? Should I answer this because I
Right.
need them to know I need help? Or do I answer this because I don't want them to think I'm a fucking freak? And like all these, like it comes into play. Like what would you, if not a paperwork, if not a mandatory psychologist visit, what do you think would be like kind of a stepping stone towards the right direction? I'm curious.
Yeah, I would say, new recruits straight at a depot, or, in the first year or two, absolutely have it that, it's highly encouraged that you see a psychologist, like have a baseline, go once every 6 months, once a year, whatever that looks like, and just have it that, it's encouraged from the top down. Not, I've had it before where it's like, oh, I have a psychologist appointment. And then, I'm told like, well, that really takes resources off the road when you do that. And
They
it's like,
say
it's
that?
those kind of,
Or
I've
that's a
had it
thought you've
before.
had?
No, no, I've been told it before, and then it's like, okay, but and luckily I was in the right spot that it's like, okay, well, me taking care of my life is the most important thing, and
Hmm.
I can't take care of somebody else. I can't draw from a cup that's empty.
Hmm.
And but not all members would be like that. All members would see that and go, yeah, you're right. I'm greedy. I shouldn't take care of myself. I should go do this. So it needs to be that top down of this is encouraged, we want you to do it. In terms of like, if I could snap my fingers and have it my way, the program that saved my life is in the US. It's called Save a Warrior. They're just outside of Hillsboro, Ohio, and it's a 72-hour experience spread over 4 days, and absolutely changed my life. Changed the way I see things, changed the way, the stories I made up in my life that, I was hopeless, helpless, and alone, that, I thought every part of me was defective and that it was my fault, and just how much that changed and how much meditation and mindfulness and coming back for others is everything to me. Like, I chat with people all the time and they go, "Oh, I don't mean to take your time." And it's like, "No, me talking to you is helping me. So thank you." It's that kind of stuff. And the biggest thing is anything crossing borders, anything going through programs, like, it's especially within Canada, we're very heavy on it has to be said by a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and that's it. Save a Warrior is warrior led. Like, everyone's either military, first responder, or something in that realm, and they've been through the program. And especially in the warrior class, that's everything. I can have a conversation with anybody and it's fine, but very few, military, first responder, whatever it looks like, doesn't matter if it's paramedic, even, nurses, coroners, sheriffs, prison guards, especially. There's so much like, yeah, you fall under this class, but some people don't really think so. Like, I have these incredible people in my life that were prison guards, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we don't even get recognized. We're not named. We're just we're just in with everybody else, and that's it." That they go through so much as well. that it's got to be from another warrior to another warrior. You know, I've been to psychologists before, and they're like, well, why do you get nervous when you go in the grocery store? And it's like, well, I got nervous when I went in the grocery store because, you know, the local sex offender was there, and I had my 8-year-old with me, and he looked at me and knew exactly who I was and looked
Oh,
at my daughter.
dude.
And I'm like, so it's not just a grocery store. And it's trying to have that conversation with somebody that doesn't know, and it's not their fault. They just don't have that experience. They don't have that thought process. They don't have the, you know, a routine traffic stop isn't a routine traffic stop. There's all these extra dangers to it where somebody in the warrior class, and it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's me talking with a paramedic, like they're aware of a lot of different dangers that I'm not
Hmm.
in certain calls, and I'm aware of a lot that they're not, but we both have that kind of serve others aspect that I think once it's spoken from one warrior to another, it makes a huge difference. And stuff like this, like you saying like I'm just a carpenter, but you open these conversations up, which is everything. And over half my stuff has nothing to do with me being a police officer. Half my stuff is trauma and loss as a normal human being, and it's not talked about. No one talks about, oh, like, you know, this person's gone. Well, you went to the funeral and that's fine. Like for me, my dad passed away 11 years ago this summer. And, you know, he was my therapist. I could talk to him about police calls. I could talk to him about whatever I wanted to. And then as soon as he was gone, my best thinking was, okay, I can't share it with anybody now. Okay, my stuff's unique. No one else knows what I'm going through. And so it was shut it down, dissociate, don't tell anyone because you'll scare them. And I find that is the social norm. That is
Hmm.
the, you know, don't make noise, just go keep your head down and go with the norm that I
Yeah.
think both on a you know public level, it's about talking with one another, and from the warrior class, first responders and military side of things, it needs to be talked about at our own level and not from a mental health university lens.
Hmm. Yeah, no, honestly, as you say that, it like reigns. I'm kind of a nerd. I'm into like video games and RPGs and stuff. But like literally, as you say that, I'm like, dude, we need guilds back. Like we need like because having like a carpenters guild where you just go and talk to the old carpenters and oh, dude, I had a buddy cut his fingers off on site. That's fucking normal. I did, just having like a place where you can do that. And I do jujitsu as well, and so that's kind of one of the things that's about jujitsu. Like, there's this weird community like that grows that way, and you'll have cops and like random some guy will be an engineer. I'm a carpenter, and then there's like a 16-year-old kid, and we're all just beating the heck out of each other, and probably the 16-year-old's beating us all up, and it is interesting. What Saving Warriors? You said it's called, right?
Save a warrior. Yeah.
Save a warrior.
Yeah.
And aside from just having kind of the peer to peer, like you kind of feel like you're in a place like that, is there anything that they do that's different? Like in terms of, like you said, I think it's a 72-hour kind of maybe retreat experience type of thing. Is
Yeah.
there anything that they do? Like I've heard of everything under the sun, honestly, and I've interviewed people that do equestrian therapy where they ride horses. I've seen people that do like plant medicine. I dude, and I can get behind pretty much anything under the sun. But is there a
Hmm.
technique they use or a method they use or something that kind of makes it unique that you think is like this is the thing? Or do you think it's just the kind of peer to peer, like, oh, this guy knows exactly what I've gone through because he literally has gone through it.
I would say they've taken, you know, 1,000 different modalities and taken like the best piece of each one and put it together. And it's something I've been a part of it. I went personally and sat in the seat in 2021, and I've been going back volunteering since 2022. And I'm heavily involved in volunteering with them. And it's the only program I have ever seen that we're constantly looking at, okay, how do we make it better? Where most it's like, okay, let's start a program. Did it work? Yep. Okay, just rinse and repeat, and we don't have to change anything ever again. This constantly looks at like, okay, what can we shorten? What do we need to extend? What do we need to add? What do we need to change? The continued learning, there's a 500-day plan that follows that 3-day experience. So it's not just, here's a worksheet, and the next time you get stressed, just fill out this worksheet and you'll be fine. Like it's a community. And what you touched on with the jujitsu, me too. I'm a blue belt as well, and it's such an amazing community that it doesn't matter where you're from, who you are, what what you do or how you identify. You're just there to learn, to roll around, and then, the immediate like high five, hug, embrace, whatever it looks like, and it's just this incredible respect that is completely lost in society today,
Hmm.
other than in some of these really small things like jujitsu. Within Save a Warrior, it's largely based on meditation. And previous to going there, I would have told you meditation's for hippies, doesn't do anything. And it's incredible. Like it has literally changed the way that I look at things, that I react to things. And if all you did was meditate every day for 20 minutes every single day, you wouldn't need half the stuff that I'm even talking about. Um, they talk about all kinds of things in terms of like ancestrally speaking, you know, labyrinth walks are something that are really important to me. And historically, it was,
Like physically walking around like a labyrinth, like a maze, or
mhm.
just walking around a park, or
Great point. So, a maze and a labyrinth are two different things. A maze
okay.
is meant to trick you. A labyrinth is one way in, one way out. And it's
Huh.
actually treated like a walking meditation. So, historically speaking, before you came back from war, you and all your other brothers had to walk a labyrinth before being accepted back into the community. And you physically dropped your armor as you walked the labyrinth, and you mourned everything that you had to do, everyone you lost, and that that everything that happened in that case. And then as you came off the labyrinth, you were welcomed by the community.
Hmm.
And this is like thousands of years ago, but the community would be lined along the road and they would say, "Welcome home."
Hmm.
And it's like we had better outlooks on mental health and brain psychology thousands of years ago, and then somehow lost it along the way. And I find military look at it fairly well at, you go to war, you come back for more. Okay, let's go over it. But the first responder world doesn't have that. The first responder world is like,
Hmm.
well, it's a Tuesday, so just
Hmm.
deal with it. Like it's not a, oh well, this was a bad day. What can we do? It's a we're at some level of war every single day because things could go bad. It's not I know exactly when something's going to happen and it's going to happen. So there's that. There's breakdowns of theater and everything else of being in the skin of a character, that kind of thing. That it's just incredible, and it's if one thing doesn't work, one of the thousand other modalities that they look into will, and it's all on the foundation of continued meditation and a daily practice. The journaling, the going to jujitsu, the meditation, the taking care of myself. You mentioned the food. Me too. I would dissociate with food all the time. I'd go to a bad call, and the thought process was like, okay, well, let's go get a bite to eat.
Hmm.
Like, let's go have fast food because that'll make us
Instantly
feel
feel
better.
better. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And instead it's just, more of the same, or it's just making it worse because I'm just stuffing it down in a different way to the point that, I don't care about my health. I don't care
Uh-huh.
about how I feel. Instead of like, no, I'll just, give me 20 minutes, I'll meditate, and then I'll be good to go instead of let's go
Yeah.
hit up
It's
some fast food joint.
it's interesting how you talk about meditation and breathe, like probably I'm assuming breathing techniques. And
Mm-hmm.
the reason I like those a lot is because I find that a lot of my problems through, substance abuse and other issues, the way I treated people, pretty much any of my motivations that led me into bad paths in my life were always like, I want to control how I feel right now. Like that's
Mm.
exactly, and that's like the fast food as well. Like it's like I need like 37 grams of sugar, 50 grams of fat, and the world's amount of sodium right now because I know that that's going to trigger a dopamine rush that
Mm-hmm.
cannot compete with anything else. And yeah, it is just like I need to control how I feel right now. Even if it's like even like a worse thing, like when it comes to substance abuse, dude, you take a bad feeling as long as you can control it. You know what I mean? You're like, I just need to be able to control exactly, change how I feel in the moment and write as fast as possible. And it is interesting how, when you think about meditation and breathing techniques, it's kind of like the physiological way to do that. So it is kind of an interesting thing when you say it again. It's one of those things where it sounds complex, but it sounds obvious. Like it sounds like the dumbest thing and the smartest thing to be said. But it is
Right.
interesting. It's in that way. Um,
I've heard some of your stuff before of, the whole like we're in a society of instant gratification
mhm,
isn't fast enough.
mhm,
That it's, I don't have enough time to, go to the gym, but I'll surf on TikTok for an hour at night, no problem, or I'll do this, or, um, through Save a Warrior, I stopped drinking because, and I just have it that, yeah, parts of me are an alcoholic, but, you know, parts of me, I'm like, it's not that I'll never drink again. I'll just drink when I have a good reason to, and I
mhm.
haven't had one in 4.5 years.
I
That it's just, am I trying to hide from something? Am I trying to bury something? Am I trying to dissociate? Or what's the thing underneath the thing? And instead, it's like, well, I could meditate for 20 minutes. And it's like, but that's 20 minutes where I could just go to this fast food joint and grab a burger
mhm.
and feel way better and then feel shitty and then repeat that cycle again instead of, I'll just meditate, I'll read, I'll journal, and then it's like, oh, okay, yeah, like the way that was showing up before isn't showing up now, and I'm okay. But it involves pausing. It involves, catching myself before it keeps going into something worse. And in our society, that's not a thing that happens on a regular basis. It's faster, faster, and faster.
Yeah, yeah. And it is something too, like meditation is one of the easiest ones as well to like if you were to build like a perfect morning routine, you're like, yo, I'm gonna build a perfect morning routine right now. I'm gonna wake up, I'm gonna do some red light, I'm gonna meditate, I'm gonna read, I'm gonna journal, I'm gonna work out, I'm gonna have a nutritious breakfast, I'm gonna da 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 da. And then like you can hit that on like a Saturday or a Sunday because you got nothing going on. But then Monday morning comes and you got like six extra emails and you got to do this thing and your kid's late for school and you got to do this and that happens. Your wife needs this and then you're like, okay, so I got to consolidate some of this stuff. And you're like, okay, if I could just get my workout in, I'm good. Like what I'm trying to say is when you do the hierarchy of like, well, I need to read because I gotta get smarter, but I can scrap that for today. I need to meditate because da 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 da. It's like, well, if I could just get my 45-minute workout in, that has the most tangible results. You know what I
Right.
mean? Or like, oh, I have to do the 15 minutes of emails because I need to fucking get paid so I can pay my bills. Like
Yeah.
meditation almost seems like the easiest one to knock off the list first because it's like, oh, 20 minutes of sitting and breathing. Dude, I think I could, I could use that 20 minutes a little bit better. That's the way my brain always goes because
Hmm.
I'm always of the mind that doing something is better than not doing something. Like
Right.
almost like you have to do something to be productive. And if you're not being productive, then you're going to feel guilt and shame at the end of today. And if you feel guilt and shame at the end of today, enough days, this is going to be a bad week, a bad month. And that's literally how my brain works, dude. Like, that's like legitimately how I think.
Yep.
And so it does seem like meditation is like the easiest one to knock off. But I've like actually had to, like I said, I bought a red light. I got a red light last year, and it's been one of the things like before I work out. I've always been of the mind like I gotta work out first thing. It's feed the cats, turn on the coffee machine, and then do my run around the neighborhood. And I've been like trying to adamantly be like, no, sit for 20 minutes first because that's the red light. Like arbitrarily, that's what my red light timer is when I turn on the lamp.
Oh, nice.
It runs for 20 minutes. So at first it was like a reading thing. I'd sit and read in front of it. And then I just like breathe because it's like it's gonna turn off automatically. I'll realize when 20 minutes is up. And it's almost like a priming. Like I don't know how to explain it. Again, exercising, going to a class, those types of things, it's more tangible results.
Hmm.
It's not the type of thing where like, oh, I've lost some body fat or I gained some my arms look a little nicer or hey, I have a little less pain. I feel like meditation has the type of results where you just don't it's so intangible that it's hard to express the importance of it.
Hmm.
Y-
Absolutely.
Right? Like it's one of those things where it's like, "Oh, I just don't scream in traffic as often." I wonder why that is. And
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Or it's a month or two down the road that someone goes, "You look different."
yeah, yeah. Well, I've even just thought of it recently. One of the things that I've been thinking about and even talking about it a little bit more is like this idea, this tendency to realize how much of a piece of shit I can be and how empathetic that makes me to other people because like you see people do things and you're like, "Oh, I've easily could see myself doing that or have seen myself doing something like that." And like a lot of the resentments we have towards other people, I feel like is just kind of that resentment of self. So that kind of without acknowledging that kind of aspect, you kind of like have more resentment for it and other people if that tracks. But that in and
Yeah,
of itself is like that's something I came through meditation of like, why am I so pissed off at this person? I remember going to sit down and meditate and I thought in my head, I can't meditate because I'm thinking so much about this person. It pissed me off so much and I'm like every 5 minutes, like I'd be lucky if I make 45 seconds without being like, but what about this person, man? Like, you know what I mean? And
yeah,
I just always felt, oh, I'm bad at this. I can't meditate. I wasn't good at it. I'm an ADHD kid. How am I supposed to sit still?
right.
Did you have those kind of thoughts going into it?
Absolutely. Between that and like the hypothetical, if something came up and it was like this person was on my mind, then it was like, well, if we have an argument again, then this is what it's gonna sound like. And
Mm-hmm.
instead I would just, ruminate on this like thousand different variations of I should have said this,
And
or
then
if
it
this
never
happens
goes the
again.
way that you plan
No,
afterwards,
no, not
anyways.
at
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
Yeah. And for me, it was like before Save a Warrior, I was within policing, I was in peer to peer all the time. And it was that like, oh yeah, let me help you. I'm here to support you. And you get the like, oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. So I get all this love and support and acceptance. But it was like, okay, I need more. Let me take on your problems because then I don't have to deal with my own stuff. And it was
Hmm.
like, but socially, it looked amazing. It was like, oh yeah, Brad's helping this people. Brad's going here and doing this. And it's like, that's right. Only look at, this mask that I have on of
Hmm.
I'm this great person that helps because internally I'm suffering. I'm not dealing with, I'm not taking care of myself. But as long as I look good, I avoid looking bad. And I'll just keep being that way. And it was like, please, please bring me your problems. Please let me solve them because then I don't have to deal with my own stuff. And when that didn't work, then the alcohol would. So,
Hmm.
yeah, it's very much meditation is like, okay, what's present right now? What's showing up? And not just having, shame and guilt towards it or judgment, that it's just having grace and just sitting through it. And for me, sometimes it's, I'll change it up. It'll be instead of the regular meditation that I do, it'll be a guided one instead. So then I'm listening to the voice instead of it just being like, sit there in silence for a while. And if my brain is fluttering too much between memories and thoughts and everything else, then I'll switch it and put a guided meditation on. And then it's like, okay, I'm just listening to the voice that's telling me what to do right now and how to breathe. And yeah, it's anything I can do for that like internal reflection and just to pause is better than, no, I'm gonna go and that's it. I don't have time for it. If all I get in is 5 minutes, then great. But it's the more I can have that daily practice of like, no, these are no matter what's. And when in doubt, it's a cold plunge. Nothing will get me grounded and more centered than throwing myself in freezing cold water to be super present on my breath because that's the only thing calming me down to not jump back out of the water again. So,
Hmm. Oh, dude, that is the hardest. I've tried implementing that in my life so many different ways and times. It is I'm the biggest baby, dude. I'm barely Canadian. I always joke like that. I hate the cold, dude. I cannot stand it. But I know exactly what you mean about like this like forcing you. Oh, I can't focus on anything other than my breath. Like this is I know exactly what you mean. I was when you first heard about, you get was it your first exposure to like an actual meditation was going to saving the warrior, save the warrior? I keep messing it
yeah,
up. I'm the worst with
no
names,
problem.
dude.
All good. It's Save a Warrior. Yeah, so I submitted my application for it. I submitted it in 2019, in November of 2019, and then was slotted to go in January 2020. That got put off, supposed to be March 2020, and then COVID happened. So then
Mm.
from the time that I first pressed submit to the time that I went was 2 whole years. And during COVID, Save a Warrior did a public Facebook group and they did the guided warrior meditation on their page twice a day in the morning and at night. And so I got into it. That was my first glimpse into it was leading up to going. And then since then has just been the daily stuff. But I would say I might have tried it twice in college, but was just I just had it that it was dumb and didn't do anything. Like it wasn't, sitting still can't possibly accomplish anything. I'm busy. I need to go do something. And yeah, it was just, I didn't have anyone really in my circle or my life that did it.
Hmm.
And so there was no like example of like, oh yeah, this is great. It was just like, no, not my thing.
Yeah, yeah. In Nelson, people weren't doing that all the time.
Where?
Sorry, didn't you say you were from Nelson originally?
No. So the last spot I worked was Fort Nelson,
Oh, okay,
a
sorry.
lot further north. And then no, I was born in Vernon, but then grew up
Hernan.
in Ontario, New
Right,
Brunswick.
right,
So
right. Ah, sorry, bad joke. Anyways, I,
all good.
I, it is interesting though. So, do you think that above all else from Save a Warrior, that was the biggest thing? Was the kind of like implementing more static and then also like walking meditation, that kind of thing, or
Yeah,
more?
that was huge for just getting me present. The like, education piece, work piece, realizing like the whole like ACEs score, the adverse childhood effect thing, that what happened in my childhood doesn't dictate who I am, but it does make a lot of sense with why I react the way that I
Mm,
do. And for a lot of things, it was like, well, no, this one adult problem, like my shooting, it was like, well, no, it's my shooting's fault that I messed up. It must be my shooting. And it had nothing to do with my shooting. It had to do with my brain connected something that happened in childhood to my shooting. And until I dealt with what happened in childhood, the shooting wasn't going away.
mm,
Where my thought process was the band-aid is the shooting. We need to fix the shooting. We need to talk about the shooting. Once I figure that out, then everything will go. And it's like putting a band-aid on this super deep wound. It's not doing anything. You're just trying to have a superficial fix,
yeah,
and it's such a in-depth problem.
yeah, yeah. It's like even if we had a tourniquet right now, even that doesn't fix the problem. Like it's like this
Right,
is still just like we're just stopping the bleeding. This doesn't
right.
actually fix the problem. It is yeah, it is in the hypothetical, we view it as like I just need to stop the bleeding so no one sees that I'm bleeding. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we never actually go into the deep fix of like, oh, I'm actually still bleeding all over my family, all over. And again, I'm talking hypothetically, but it's like if you never fix that wound, it's not like stopping the bleeding really fixes it. Like
Right.
it is the deeper thing. And yeah, the same way, like, dude, even as you talk about policing and the shooting and that aspect of it, I'm hearing in my head like the same conversations I have with my wife, where, because like I said, we're newlywed, we're in the honeymoon phase. And so we're having these types of conflicts that you can still talk about how you're doing the conflict. Like, hey, I don't really like the way you said that. And, I really want to be here for you, but, the way that this happened, I'm not really like able to understand and empathize as well. And we're still in that phase where you can still have those conversations. And, there's the premarital counseling that gave us some tools. So it's like that kind of aspect, but there is like the, like at some point, like you reaches a point where those conversations, if you get jaded and you go down the wrong path, they stop happening, right? Like those
Hmm.
types of things then all of a sudden it's like you're not meeting my needs, and then like each of you feels that way, so that you're not able to, but when it's again, when it's in policing, the stakes are so much higher, right? Like it's not like in a marriage where you've consensually agreed to be in this relationship together of like, oh, we're going to continuously choose success. And, maybe we don't always feel that way, but when it's policing and you're dealing with the public, it's like a lot of, what do they say? Like a lot of those interactions are, you could say, non-consensual, right? Like people aren't like
Yeah.
wanting to go and like interact with each other a lot of the times. And so it becomes like a dance where, like with a marriage, again, people consented and we're like, okay, there's still this like shared goal. Whereas like in policing, it's kind of almost the opposite because they're not like a
I
consensual,
get what you mean. Yeah.
voluntary.
They don't bleed well together though either. Like you talked about relationships, and it's like as a police officer, my job is to listen for the problem and solve it.
Right.
And the worst thing I can do with my wife is listen to her and then say, "Oh, well, just do this."
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like she wasn't looking for me to fix it. She was looking for me to just be quiet and listen. That a good friend of mine, he has conversations with his wife, and before she'll be like, "Hey, I need to talk to you about something," and he'll go, "Okay, do you want me to listen or do you want me to try and help?" And it's
Right.
like even just starting out with that basis of, do you want me to listen or do you want me to try and help? It's like, okay, you know, my stupid idea of like, oh well, just do this, or I'll try and mansplain her how to do this probably isn't the right answer. But it bleeds over from work. And then in terms of relationships, like there's three levels to relationships. It's I-itting, it's transactional, and it's I-thou. So the transactional relationship that I like to talk about is like you go to the gas station, you get gas. The person that's being paid to be there is at the teller, and you're buying a candy bar. You go, "Oh, hey Mark, how are you?" Like, "Oh, hope you have a good day." And
Hmm.
you treat the person that's getting paid to be there better than most people in your life,
Mm.
because you're asking how they're doing, you're talking to them, you're making eye contact with them instead of like I-itting, like, "I'm doing this because you're going to do this for me," or "I want this," or "You have to do this because of this." That it's like for me, transactional relationships are my basement. Like that is the lowest level that I'm at, is
Mm.
that, I'm giving you something and you're giving me something back. It's not I'm only doing this because I'm getting what I want, or it's not you have to do this because I say so. And then the other is I thou. It's that I want nothing from you and only for you. It's not I'm keeping receipts of, yeah, well, remember that one time I did this? I'm just doing this because I want to do it.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. It's like how they say love keeps no receipts. That's like a part of the
Right.
Bible. Yeah. Yeah. No, no, that tracks for sure. It definitely yeah, it's like that thank you moment when you go to the store. Like you trade your $5 bill for like a box of cereal or whatever. And it's like, well, you're just like, it's so, you're right. It's so transactional. You both say thank you. Like he says thank you say thank you. And that's kind of the only situation in life where that ever is the appropriate response because 99.9% of the time, the response to thank you is you're welcome. But
Right.
like only in a transactional type of experience is where you like, thank you, thank you. Like it's kind
Yep.
of that's the way I've always heard it in my head is like the thank you, the double thank you. It's like the only time where it's acceptable to not reply with you're welcome. It is something interesting to think about. And the other thing again, it is kind of I guess like we said, like kind of the interactions between police and people that aren't police are kind of I don't want to say compulsory, but non-voluntary or I can't remember what I used earlier as that term, but you know consensual maybe non-consensual like you can't really say no right right like it's not
Hmm.
like it's not like I agreed to this when I got up this morning so there is that kind of like okay yeah it's not a thank you moment but it is something that again I have my own perspective on it, and some people may agree, some people may not. It's such a necessary thing that when I uh, interact with police, I always just kind of have a good experience. But again, maybe that's because I've always had good experiences, so I just approach it that way. But it is such a weird thing. But I'm glad that as you kind of evolve through this, like it seems like you're getting good feedback, which is why you're obviously continuing to do it. And
Hmm.
so I think that I think that that is very useful because again, it can only happen for so long. Like when they had the Vietnam and the Korea wars in America, and they had that like horrific sight of like people coming back from war, and people were like spitting on soldiers, and like you know what I mean? Because it was just
Hmm.
like such a disgraceful to the society of like, oh, why did we do this? It was built on lies, and you just really destroyed. Aside from that, it never happens really. Like even now to this day I'm somebody that I don't support the current wars going on, but I still support the men and women that serve. And it's kind of a weird kind of feeling. I don't know if you get what I'm saying,
I
but
do. Yeah.
but it, but with cops, it's almost the opposite, where it's like consistently like that. And again, I don't want to speak to anybody. I've never seen cops get spit on. I've seen videos of it, but I've never. But it seems like there's always, and again, you kind of said it was like a small, loud minority, but there's this sentiment, especially with like the last few years of the defund the police stuff and all these different things, where it's frustrating for me on the outside looking in, and I'm sure obviously for you, like frustrating for you, bro. Imagine, like, but it's like it is one of those things where it's like such a necessary and then there's this like weird friction but I think that the more we can get into that better like I don't know what it would have to take. I don't know if it's purely propaganda. I don't know what it is, but it's as a guy that grew up as a knucklehead, I would like to see a lot of people look at cops as the heroes that they are. That's kind of what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And I think that making these steps towards humanizing them a lot more because again it is still a job where like I look at them and I go those guys are built different but then you have to actually realize it's fun to say that it's cool to be like oh those are the most alpha dudes in society and typically they are but it is also like a thing where it's like oh we should humanize these people like these are the guys that still need like a pat on the shoulder and told like I joke with my wife even about jujitsu. She goes, "Why do you like going there so much?" And it's like, because it's one of the only places that I'm told, no matter what, just for showing up, really, good job. Like, and
Mm.
people are thanking you because if you don't show up, they can't train. Right? So people are
Hmm.
just thankful that you're there, always telling you good job. And it's like, man, if we could humanize people in roles like this a lot more and just have that kind of like, hey, thank you. Good job. We appreciate you. I just, I feel like, I don't know what, again, maybe it's a chicken and the egg thing, but what are your thoughts on that?
Good point. Like for me, it's I've dealt with all kinds of people that have had really bad experiences with the police before. So then, their initial reaction to me isn't good. And I've had, really great ones. The ones I kind of enjoy the most are the like, look, I don't know how you were treated before, but clearly like the uniform is bothering you. Like I will treat you with the same respect that you treat me. Like and it's just realizing, like I said before, we don't get invited to the fun stuff. We're there for a reason, or we're there because, we have to hold somebody accountable or responsible for things. And it's just a matter of meeting them at that and not being like, yes, I have a level of authority, but I don't need to enforce it. I don't need to hold it over your head or belittle you. I'm no different than anybody else.
Mhm.
Like, and especially working in small communities, I realized that really quickly and have talked to other members that it's like, yeah, you can look really tough when you're in uniform, but they know where you live when you're not. That
Mm.
it's like just treat them like normal human beings because they are. I'm no different. It's just a job title that publicly has a lot more to it than, the person working at a grocery store or a convenience store or whatever else. But there is zero difference between us and our life experiences and what we all go through. That for me, that's my kind of platform is I just meet people where they're at and treat them with respect. I don't care if they have a record a mile long or, it's the 82-year-old lady walking down the road. Like there's no change in, oh, I'm going to treat her way nicer than I am, this guy that I've arrested 5 times. It's treat them like human beings because that's what we all are.
Yeah. And this might be a weird question, but I've always so like if you grow up like again in rural areas, hunting, fishing, whatever, you kind of know like CFOs have the capability to pretty much ruin your life if they wanted to. And
Yeah.
I again like they like even just this cop the other day when I'm driving to go catch a ferry to go get married, I literally thought after the interaction I was like, oh, he could have really ruined my life if he wanted to. Like he could have impounded my truck. I was maybe going a little bit faster than I should have. And so it was like, oh, he could have really ruined my life, dude. Like it like I get like obviously there's mistakes I can make at work that could maybe potentially ruin someone's life. You build the house
Mm.
wrong, but like kind of a far stretch, and maybe the time span's a little bit less immediate. What is that like going to work in the morning, just thinking like, just whether I choose to or not, a mistake or a choice, like you could literally end or change someone's entire life. Like,
Yeah.
what is that like?
I think the languaging is really important. Like you say,
Sorry
like,
to
man,
be
they could
crude.
really.
Yeah.
No, no, no. I love it because that's how a lot of people have it. It's like, man, you could really ruin someone's life. It's like, or I could hold somebody responsible for the things that they do.
Yeah.
That it's like I didn't make somebody do something that I got called there.
Oh,
I
yeah.
like even something as small as a speeding ticket that it's like, I didn't make you
Late.
punch it because of whatever situation. I can have, sympathy and empathy for the situation that you're in, for why you're doing it. But, there's a reason we have highway patrol members
Hmm.
because the best way to stop fatal collisions is by stopping speeders, distracted drivers on cell phones, people not wearing seatbelts. That it's like, no, there's this no, like I jokingly say I get a free toaster for every 7 tickets that I write. 'Cause someone's like, "Oh yeah, you got to meet your quota,
Your
blah blah blah." I'm
quotas.
like,
Yeah.
"That's right. Yeah, I get a free toaster." Um, but for me, it's like if if at the end of the day me stopping you prevented you from going 10 kilometers down the road and going head on with somebody, then perfect. Like I will live in the possibility of what I prevented instead of oh well, I'll just ignore it. And for
Yeah.
some people, the finger wag and hey, don't let me see you do it again, or I live on a really small island. It's like, sometimes the first time I see you is a warning, and the second time I see you, you're getting everything I can throw at you. Sometimes that works. Sometimes it's no, there needs to be, 160, $180 ticket so that your brain associates like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this with the goal of I want you to make it home. I want
Hmm.
you to go to your family. I don't want somebody else to hate you. Same thing with drinking and driving. Like, oh, well, we're just having a good time. Or like even with this season right now of summer and grad parties and everything else, that it's like there's nothing that can, ruin the rest of your life more than drinking and driving. And
Yeah,
then you
Dewey.
take a life and, yeah, if I have to be that bad guy for a few minutes and arrest you for impaired driving and you lose your license, yes, from that person's standpoint, I've ruined their life. But from my standpoint, it's I'm ultimately saving it or I'm holding you responsible for the actions that you made. So
Hmm.
it's just having about it in perspective for me and having that conversation, not just, you know, I don't treat people like shit because they did something shitty.
Hmm.
I hold them accountable for what they do and still treat them like a normal human being.
Yeah, and I mean, no, well, when I say ruin someone's life, I just mean like, obviously I'm joking, I'm being tongue in cheek, but it's like he easily like maybe I should pay this ticket before I talk about it as much, but it is, it is like, dude, he probably could have impounded me for like a week, I think is the law from what I could deduce. He thinks I was maybe going allegedly. And you know what I mean? Like it's like and he
Uh-huh.
chose like I was happy with the $180 ticket and the slow your ass down boy like kind of deal. Like
Right.
I was satisfied with that. I said I joked with my she was my fiance at the time. I was like, I don't know if that cop's ever been thanked for a ticket before, but that was probably like
It's funny you say that. I was highway patrol before I came to Bowen, and I said it's both funny and weird the amount of times that I'm thanked on a traffic
yeah,
stop
yeah.
because a lot of times it's like, I put it to the lower amount or help them get out of something that
Mhm.
it's like, yeah, I'm giving them a ticket, but they're still saying thank
Thank
you.
you.
Like
Yeah.
it's a lot of it is just that the conversation. I could be super blunt and say, give me your license and registration, write the ticket, and go, here you go. And then they, say whatever expletive as they drive away. Or I can treat them like a decent human being that I would want to be treated like, have a conversation with them and still hold them accountable. And, off
Yeah.
they go. And it often results in it being a good interaction.
Yeah, especially as well. I don't know what it's like in Bowen, but I know like where I'm at, I'm kind of right on the border of like Richmond, New West, Surrey, Delta area. I'm like right near the Alex Fraser Bridge. And
Okay.
so I hear a lot about, different municipalities have their own police forces here as well. So there's Delta PD. Richmond, we have RCMP, but VPD. Surrey has
Hmm.
like a big thing going on right now of if it's Surrey PD, RCMP, and so it's kind of madness, and you hear a lot about different things. And again, through jujitsu and just other sports and going to gyms, you meet a lot of cops throughout the years, and you have conversations and especially again, I believe I'm crazy. I believe some of it comes down to propaganda from news sources or whatever. But it's like there seems to be this like push towards quote unquote empathy, and you always hear these puff pieces about this person had an interaction with the police, but they were treated wrong and they went through the foster care system, and everyone's got a story, and I get it. I try to be as sympathetic as possible, but it comes a point where, we get to the situations where people are assaulting people. There's like this, there was a famous thing where like a guy got, assaulted because he asked a guy not to blow his vape smoke in his kid's face. And he got assaulted downtown, I think was either hospitalized or, worse. And it gets to these points where people are so brash and brazen and they're getting arrested, but then they get out of jail and, maybe they don't even go to jail. They get like a 2 year sentence out in 6 months and they just continuously do this. And again, you see the news sources, you see all these things, you hear the stories, and nobody can honestly. look at a situation like that and be like, this person deserves to go to jail and sit in a cage for life. But I feel like there's this idea of like maybe misplaced empathy. Like if we put too much empathy, and again, maybe this is stupid to try and explain to a cop, but it's like we give too much empathy to this one section of society that are clearly breaking the rules. At some point you almost have to admit that what you're saying then is I have zero empathy for law-abiding citizens. You know what I mean? Like it's like I've almost flip-flopped. Again, it's something that it's not a concrete thought or opinion. It was just something I was thinking about running, knowing I was talking to you today.
Yeah.
It is something that
I mean, great topic. You touched on the riskiest conversation a police officer can probably have publicly. Um,
you don't
so
think the plant medicine thing is more risky? Uh,
no, no,
okay,
I don't. I
okay.
yeah, I'm all for the thought of new possibilities. Um, but talking about, history, culture, and everything else for being in the situation that they are, um, I'm a sus white male that can't possibly comprehend a lot of things that people have gone through. So to say like I think it's like this, I avoid news and media and a lot of stuff in a lot of ways because it's really peaceful for me. And, there's for a lot of things, what other people think of me is none of my business.
Mhm.
And I don't need to go looking for drama and trauma where I don't already get it myself. I've worked in a lot of really small communities, especially in certain, categories, I'll say, that I've seen the worst thing that people can do to themselves. And I've also seen the most incredible people come out of it. That I think there is a lot to it. As a police officer as well, I enforce the law, but when it comes to courts and everything else, that's beyond me. And I've had it in my career where I've put it, I've held the responsibility personally, like that, oh, well, I must have done something wrong, or that was my fault, or, the courts should have done this. And it's, no system is perfect. Sometimes it works out really well, sometimes it doesn't, but I just don't, hold who I am on those bases. And that's from somebody that, you know, I've had the worst things happen to my own family members and need to look at the court system as an answer and feel betrayed and failed. And I come from that system, so I get it on both ends. But it's I'm a huge fan of the things that I can control. I can control how I treat another human being. I can control how much what happened or what I think should have happened, you know, plays a role on me. I'm not God. I don't get to choose what happens to other people. And, other people, I'm not responsible for what happens to other people. And I think I just sit really comfortably in that there are so many hardships in the world that, yeah, there's some people that are set to a very, very difficult life based on who they are and their experiences in life. That, do I think they should get, different breaks or anything else? Who am I to say? I haven't been in their shoes. I haven't been in their experiences. And for some, I don't know how they lived the lives that they did and are the people that they are.
Mhm.
So I'm really careful when it comes to that stuff, and I understand it, and I've been at both the good side of it and the bad side of it, and I still feel the same that we live in an absolutely incredible country and community that we can have these conversations out loud
Mhm.
without the possibility of we're going to go to jail for it, or that we can say like, hey, what do you think about this, instead of like, no, you don't have a choice to think at all. That
Mhm.
yes, there's some things that it's really hard to hear or be a part of, but there's also a lot of blessings, and it's I just choose the things that I'm grateful for over the frustrations that I can't do anything about it if I wanted to.
Yeah. And dude, I honestly, I super appreciate. I know sometimes I can ask questions that are a little weird and uncomfortable, but I genuinely am just such a curious guy, and I'm so malleable. Like I don't know if anyone else is feels comfortable admitting that or not, but dude, I just think I'm 31. I'm born in 95, right? So I'm almost 31. And so like for 90% of my life, that's an exaggeration. I've had social media. And I grew up, like I said, a little bit of a knucklehead, definitely like a very like I had very different views than I do today, right?
Hmm.
And even 5 years ago, I had very different views than I do today. Even 2 years ago, and all the time, my views flip flop. And I think that, excuse me, being able to have these conversations and ask these types of questions and just be like, I know I'm not the only one thinking this, but I'm just going to say it, even though it's a little uncomfortable and it's a little weird. Just like hearing so many different people answer and everyone's answer is different. And then it just adds a little bit more to the mosaic of like my ideas and my opinions.
Hmm.
And it makes me a lot more empathetic. It is, like I said, empathy and sympathy are one of the things that people talk a lot about nowadays. And I think that a lot of the time we're told you need to have empathy for this person without realizing that, placing empathy in one area, it's not like it almost is a zero sum game. Like it's one of those things where it's like, if we have so much empathy for this over here, it almost degrades the empathy for this group over here to a degree. I don't know if that makes sense, but I
I see
just,
what you mean. I would probably relate it more to like how we talked about like as parenting, like with my thought process, that first set of like, well, at least I didn't hit my kids. And like the thought process is like that, yeah, yeah, I was hit and now I didn't hit them, so it's better, but it doesn't mean that it's good. Where, I've worked in communities and been in homes that there's nothing in the cupboards, there's a mattress on the floor, and that's it. Or
Mhm,
even I've had conversations with my wife of like, if somebody, when my kids were really little, if someone, a stranger, walked into our house and went to like reach for one of my kids, they would move away because they'd be like, I don't know who this is.
mhm,
And I've been in a lot of homes that these tiny little kids, like, they sense it. They know they're safe with me. They know, like, that's the only thing of protection that they felt is
mhm,
me. And they'll reach up for me. Like, that is both really incredible and crushing to me all at the
mhm,
same time that's their life. And to say, whatever that looks like. And I've been all over the country and have seen all kinds of different cultures with, similar traits of, when your best thing is there might be one meal in the fridge and that's the best you have to look forward to. Or kids that had conversations with my kids and would come over after school because they didn't know if mom and dad were going to be drunk or were going to be passed out or not, that's the baseline that they have to move forward and have overcome and adapted so many things that it's, who am I to say like, oh, this is horrible, or how could they do this? I'm on the like gratefulness for it of like, look at these amazing people from these communities that have gone through so much and still come out so strong, instead of turning it as a like, well, why did they get an out or why did they get a break? And it's like,
mhm,
who am I? I lived a very, very comfortable life in a home. I wasn't worried where the next meal was coming from. I slept in my own bed. The very, very basic things of what I can be grateful for don't happen for a lot of people in this country.
mhm.
We're not talking about a third world country. We're not talking about somewhere else. This is within Canada
Yeah.
that, the very basic things of I woke up, I have heat, if it's hot outside, I have air conditioning, I have food, I have filtered water. you know, there's a lot of people that can't say those first five or six things that I did, that I then have so much privilege that I can say, well, what about this? So I'm
Mhm.
just really careful with that and really grateful for the things instead of looking at the like, well, this doesn't seem seem fair in certain politics or certain views.
Mhm. Yeah, I guess again, it is maybe just a bit different just in terms of demographics because here I'm more talking about like a lot of the crime is like gang violence. And so you'll see like shootings in public all the time, and then you're like, oh, that guy will be back in the street next month. And
Hmm.
that's what I mean by like the misplaced empathy, because it's like like at some point you kind of got to come to terms with how unsympathetic you're being with the business owners and the kids that live in the neighborhoods and all of those things. It's like, yeah, but again, I see both sides of it. I used to run a volunteer service on the downtown east side for years, and I would be down there once a week handing out food and clothes. And dude, it is like I don't know if you've been there. It's literally like a third world within our country. Like it's
Hmm.
just I don't know how to describe it other than that. It's the Wild West. I've had the most. That was one of the first times I had a conversation with a cop that changed my life because he told me to pack up and leave. I go, come on, man, have some empathy. I'm handing out food and clothes. And he goes, you ever pull a body out from under a city bus? And I was just like, oh shit. Like this is, we live in different worlds. Like we're in
Hmm.
different worlds altogether. And so, like, it is just, dude, yeah, and it's like you just think again, I get it, dude. 90% of those people were like failed in life. Like they were just dealt the shittiest cards that you can possibly be dealt in life. They went through foster care systems. They had no food. They had literally no one that cared about them ever. And then you see people, and there's like literal children down there, dude. It's like the most gut wrenching thing. And then there's people that just literally elect to do that. They just choose to live life like that. And it's such a hard, again, dude, I'm never in that position where professionally I have to make a decision like that. Like the closest it comes to that is like I'll get a customer who to be like, "Can you do a reno down here?" And I go, "No, I don't work down there, dude. Like I don't work on that side of town. It's like unless you want to pay for security for my truck." That's the closest I come to it, right? I
Right.
could only imagine like when you have to be in that every single day. It's I have it's unfathomable to me, man. So I don't know why I even thank you maybe or I don't know but it just is something that I think about quite a bit, dude, and it's hard to think about because you again you almost it feels like a zero sum game even though again if you believe in God, if you're a Christian, I sort of identify that way. I definitely think empathy, sympathy, forgiveness is the way you need to roll in life, but at some point it becomes like this moral kind of dilemma, and it honestly bothers me sometimes. Like I don't know where I land a lot of the time.
Yeah.
It's tough, dude. I don't know. Sorry. So, um it's already 1 o'clock, man. I don't know. I didn't actually ask if you have a time frame you got to stick to. How you doing right now?
I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there
Going
anything
for me.
that you wanted to discuss that we didn't get to chat about, or anything at all that you want to share that?
I don't think so. I was laughing with my wife when I was talking about this that I'm like, I'm kind of up for whatever the topic is or
Yeah,
like,
I always feel a weird kind of expectation that I need to uphold. And then I just remember like I don't really plan a lot of these things. I just like to have conversations. I was telling my uncle like, "Oh, I'm gonna go do this." And he's like, "What are you gonna talk to him about?" I go, "I have no idea, man. I just literally we'll see. We'll let you know how it goes because I it is something that like again all of these jobs I have so much reverence for, and it like a little part of me is like still that like 10-year-old boy that's like I just got to ask him everything. And then I also have this like conspiracy theory side of my brain where I just think everything's a psyop, and I'm like, okay, I got to ask him about this too. And they kind of contradict each other but coincide in the same space together, that it's just
absolutely.
it feels awesome, man. So